friends. I've perfectly framed you so that you only see the clean parts of my room, which right now is all that you're seeing. I worked on a short film these past 2 weekends, and because of that, my room is absolutely, and parts of the house too, are an absolute disaster. It's been a long time since I've made a video, and it's about time to make something new. Today, I'm going to be showing you guys all of the oil paintings that I have made and are currently in my custody. So I'm going to take you through the timeline of the oil paintings I've created. I'll start with the very first piece I've ever made, and then after that I'll move into 4 pieces that are part of a collection for an exhibition I made in high school. I did IB art in high school, and so that meant for 2 years I was creating and curating this exhibition, and it was half oil paintings and half illustrations. So maybe I'll show you guys my illustrations another time, but yes, today is all about oil paintings. And then after that, I have 2 paintings that I made in 2024, and then 2 paintings that I made this year. And I'm excited to show you guys all of those. When it comes to materials that I use, my babies are the Winsor Newton, the Winsor Newton oil colors, These are kind of expensive, but they last you 5 trillion years. These are the same ones I've had since middle school, except for this huge white one right here, which I had to get because I use a lot of white in all of my paintings. And a lot of yellow, clearly. I love yellow and white. But, yeah. I use this like plexiglass, it's plastic. I use this plastic palette. Yeah, but unfortunately I'm not really in the habit as much as I should be of mixing paints before I put them on the canvas. I mix some paints while they're on the canvas. I need to get out of that habit because, you know what, maybe I don't. Maybe it's perfectly fine the way I'm doing it. And then when it comes to brushes, I just use whatever I've, And then when it comes to brushes, I use literally whatever I have access to. I'm not picky about brushes. Obviously I have a couple of favorites. I love soft brushes, but sometimes you need a sharp brush for detail or like a rough brush. Anyways, yes. Those are the most important things that I use. Except for... So this right here is the turpenoid I've been using. It's working really pretty good. I used to use a natural one, but I haven't been able to find a replacement for it, so this has been good for what I need. Okay, now time for the fun. This baby right here is a study of the painting Flower Field by Van Gogh. And this is the very first oil painting I ever made. I started oil painting because my friend Ella did it, and she is a super talented oil painter, way better than I will ever be. And she took classes from this woman named Barb, and she invited me to join, and I did. And I am very grateful I did because oil painting has been a really positive thing in my life. I think it's kind of obvious I already had a wee bit of a talent for oil painting since the beginning. Yeah, I'm also glad I chose this one because my first introduction to oil painting was through pointillism, and pointillism still very much impacts the way that I paint, and you'll see that through some of my following stuff. But yes, very pretty, very proud of this one. Unfortunately, between this piece and the next piece, we're missing about like 4 years worth of oil paintings. I was very insecure of what I was creating during this time, in my artistic process. I was trying to do new things, but they just weren't quite looking the way that I wanted them to. And I think I was too influenced by trends a little bit during this time, and I was doing what I wanted to do, but I also wasn't. So some of these paintings are also just cover-ups of old paintings that I was insecure of, which is really disappointment because you can't see, kind of like my kind of grosser period of oil paintings. So yeah, if you're a newer artist watching this, keep your ugly work, because even though it's ugly work, it's a reminder of where you came from. That being said, on to the next piece. This piece starts the yeah, the collection I have that I made in high school and was used specifically for an exhibition that I did for IB Art. And the theme of my exhibition was the quote, "Is it better to speak or to die?" which is from a French book. That's where it originates from. Some French book that I'll find the name of. But it's used obviously in the film Call Me By Your Name. And I had watched it during that time, and it really impacted, I don't know, just like the way I saw action and the way that I saw, yeah, just action in general. So all these pieces have a connection to that quote, but some of them I kind of had to like find a way to kind of weasel into that theme because it wasn't necessarily inspired by that theme, but I could connect it to that. Anyone who's been in like a high school art class or has made an exhibition knows that some of the pieces you have to kind of make up a story for to kind of pretend that it has to do with your exhibition topic. I mean, maybe some of you guys don't know that. Maybe some of you guys are very honest with it and you do it the right way. But yeah, a lot of my pieces have other inspiration, but it was a way that I was able to tie it to that quote. Okay, this piece is called Bombshell. And already you can see it's quite different than what we were just looking at. In high school, I made a little card next to all these paintings with the name, you know, the measurements and what it was about. Blah, 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 blah. But the inspiration for this piece was the feeling of having love with nowhere to put it. And yeah, some really cool things that I did with this piece is obviously it's extremely smooth. In most of it, like the skin is very smooth with the gradient from color to color. The hair is very smooth. Yeah, everything's really smooth. And then we have the pointillism of the eyes, which I think creates, you know, makes this to be a lot of visual interest in contrast with everything else. But what I really, really love that I did is that we have glitter. And I decided to put glitter in the eyes, lips, heart, and tears. And the thought process with that was just because there's glitter in her tears, it makes it look like she's eternally crying. Yeah, kind of depressing, but I think I really love the way that it turned out. And I think there's a beauty that the most shiny and the most, you know, forever moving pieces of it end up being the mouth where you talk from, the heart where you love from, and then the eyes where you cry from. So, cool things going on here. And yeah, she's a lovely lady. The next baby that I've got she goes by two names. I originally named her, and then in recent years I've renamed her to Portrait of Divina, simply because I think I've just better understood what this piece means. Obviously there's a lot of inspiration here from like Catholic Roman Madonnas, and yeah, the whole thought process with this painting is just, growing up very, very religious, trying to understand where women fit into religion when it doesn't really seem to be made for them sometimes. We have her looking up, possibly looking for some answers, and I wonder if she's gonna find them. But yeah, this is the most realistic piece that I've ever made, and I want to try it again with realism. Unfortunately, realism scares me just a little bit, as it does everybody. But it's because I would rather just paint something that's pretty instead of having to worry about if it looks good and if it looks realistic. And sometimes it's out of insecurity. So yeah, I think the next piece that I paint, I'm going to try to do some realism because it's scary and it's actually very difficult, as you can imagine. But sometimes paintings need realism. And the image that I have in my head for my next painting needs realism. So yeah. Very proud of her, and she's still a very strong painting. This is probably one of my strongest, most realistic paintings. On to another high school piece. This one is just so glorious. I love the shape of the canvas and how it works so perfectly with the content itself. This one is named Lily of the Valley, and I want to read you what I wrote about it in my journal so that I don't mistake my thought process. Okay, so what I wrote in my notebook was just, my favorite flower is the lily of the valley, yet they forever droop under their own weight. Okay, so during this point, some things were happening in my life that felt out of my control, and I wasn't very happy with them. And because of that, it made me reevaluate what made life beautiful, because for a lot of my life I had associated with, positivity and kindness and happiness, all with being beautiful. But at this point, when I wasn't so happy and I wasn't feeling so, positive, how could I still find my life to be beautiful? And it forced me to reevaluate beauty and associate it with, something like sadness, something like, gloom and misery. And I think I did a good job with this piece, because you can tell there's kind of like a weight on her. There's a stress, a displeasement of some sort, but she's still quite beautiful. And for a time period, this was my Instagram profile picture. And this was a very perfect encapsulation of myself in the time, I would say. So, love her. This is the last piece in my high school saga, and her name is 3-Leaf Clover. This is another one that has a lot of depth to it. But at this time in my life, I did not feel pretty. I did not feel beautiful. I was not dating. Any romantic thing that could have happened in my life, I very quickly didn't know how to engage with. Or I just wouldn't follow after it. I had this thought process of, when I'm 17, I'll be pretty. When I'm 18, I'll be pretty. No, when I'm 19, I'll be pretty. And it just felt like I was forever waiting for, to get pretty. And I was stopping myself from experiencing things, because I was like, no, I'll do that when I'm pretty. Or I'll follow after this goal when I feel more confident in myself. And that was never coming. And so there were all these experiences that I was not letting myself have, because I felt like I needed to wait until I felt perfect enough to experience them. And so we have 3 beings here. We have a bear, which experiences hibernation. We have a moth, which obviously goes through metamorphosis. And then we have a swan, which, goes to be so lovely and beautiful. Creates like a 3-leaf clover. And it was just the idea that I'd been born unlucky. Like I'd been born having to go through this change in order to feel like I had worth. Quite depressing. But yeah, it came together to be something quite beautiful. And I guess if I had to say anything, it's that you don't have to wait until you feel perfect in order to go after goals or to experience things. Because there's beauty all the time in everything. And I still feel connected to this piece, because I'm still telling myself like, when I'm 25 I'll be like perfect, or when I'm 30 I'll be like even more like stunning, which who knows. But yeah, very pretty. This baby now starts my college saga. And this was made in 2024 during a winter break. I wish that I had made more art before this point, but it just wasn't very practical to bring all of my art supplies with me to college. So I went home and I made this and the other one I'm about to show you. But now I have my painting supplies with me, so everything's better now. But this one's named Doe. This one doesn't really have too much of like a specific meaning to it. It was more so just me practicing with paint again and getting back into the loop of things and just reminding myself of what my style was. How I painted, I suppose. But I'm very proud of this lovely lady. She was also my Instagram profile for a hot second, and she also did a very good job of encapsulating how I was feeling. But I'll show you some close-ups of this one, because there are some very, very intricate, moments in this piece that I think can only be encapsulated if I show you a little bit closer. So yeah. My next baby is named Utopia, and I made this one after I had taken a writing class, and in that class I met a lot of people who thought very, very differently than me. and it forced me to think about what my ideal world would be and how people could, you know, be so different but still get along. And that's how this piece was born. I have just some, I have nature, very natural elements, but then I also have man-made elements. And it's just pretty, and everything works cohesively, and everything makes sense together. Even though there's a little bit of juxtaposition. So, proud of her. Now we move into the paintings that I made this year, which, these are some fun ones. This one is named Tic Tac Toe. She was born because I saw this image in my head of just a 3x3 of just each one having like their own little, I don't know, idol, item, what have you. And it ended up looking like a tic-tac-toe board. And I thought that was interesting because humans, we put ourselves in this game with nature where it's like, who's gonna win? Who's gonna be able to make it to the end? And nature's gonna win. Nature's just gonna win. But each element just encapsulates something that I find very beautiful in nature, or just in humans in general. And I don't know, we work so well together, and we look pretty together. And that was really a lot of it. We have some of my favorite things. My snake meatball, lily of the valley, just some pretty little ladies, a lunar moth, a swan, rainbow trout. I have a whole story with rainbow trout. Don't have time for it right now. And then we have a unicorn, because duh, why not? This last piece that I'm going to show you is very different than my last one. Well, all of my last pieces. And I think I'm entering into a new artistic era of some sort. This piece right here is named Swayback. I'm sure you can come to your own conclusions of what this piece is about. It was an interesting piece to make because I usually don't, like, obviously you see with all my last paintings, I don't paint nudity. It's just something that, you know, whenever I paint a painting, it's because the image came into my head. And just before this point, I'd never really imagined a painting with anyone, you know, nude in it, I guess. But I'd say what geared me up for this is this summer I went to a lot of museums, I saw a lot of art, and one thing I noticed was that most of the art is created by men, but most of the art inside is depicting women. And so there was this thought, well, you know, while I was walking through, that was like, okay, so, you know, I am beautiful, but I'm not allowed to say that myself, but other people are allowed to say that for me. Like, I can be beautiful, but I'm not allowed the one to display it or talk about it. It has to be someone else deciding I am beautiful or deciding what is beautiful about me. And that was kind of a gross idea that I was realizing. And I think after that experience, it kind of woke me up to the idea of, you know, I don't have to want to paint nudity. I don't have to, like, you know, it's not a problem, but if anyone in this world deserves to depict nudity of women, it's women. You know, I understand what you know, a nude woman would look like, or the emotional state behind her eyes, what that would be better than what a man would think. And so when I had this vision in my head, there was a bit of apprehension, especially while I was painting it, and like people, you know, I had people coming in my house, friends or, you know, my roommates would be looking at it, they're like, oh, what are you painting? It was kind of just like a, like, yeah, very vulnerable. This is a very vulnerable painting to make. So there was some apprehension with creating it, but I let myself do it, and I'm really happy I did because I think this is one of my most, emotionally vulnerable pieces that I've made. And I think it says a lot, and it's kind of beautiful in a really disgusting way. And I'll have to show you some close-ups. There's some lilies of the valley, of course. This was just a way to tell people that I see them, and that I want to try to understand their pain that they're going through. Yeah. Okay, I have like 2 seconds because this camera is gonna die on me. But, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned a little bit about me and my art, and hopefully you thought something was pretty. or at least not ugly. Painting is really important to me. It's how I've been able to process a lot of emotions throughout my life. It's how I'm able to say what I want to say without saying it, as all of my art is. And I'm really excited to see what pieces I make in the future, and I hope you guys are curious too. But yeah, paint. You should paint. And maybe I should make a video about how I paint in my painting process to help you guys understand what my painting process looks like, so that you can start your own painting process. Okay. I love you guys. And I don't know if you saw this, but if you subscribe, you can leave a hate comment. Which, yeah, pretty admirable of me, I must say. Okay. Love you.